Have you ever tried intermittent fasting? Well, I just finished reading an article on CNBC that caught my attention, saying that a study that has been published by UCSF shows no statistical difference between two groups, with one doing intermittent fasting and the other not when it comes to weight loss. So what does that mean? What I really want to touch base on today is that a lot of these trends or sometimes diet fads come into existence, and I don't want to label all of these things as a dietary fad because I do believe there is substance in a lot of them. But one thing that we do have to understand is when it comes to nutrition and fitness and wellness in general, we each have our own individual differences, which means it's very hard to place one set of rules or boundaries and say that this works for everybody. I think we're starting to see really interesting differences on an individual to individual basis on how our bodies are reacting to certain foods that you might think, wait a second, this might be good for me. However, your body might react to it differently compared to another individual. So pretty much the point that I want to make with this video is just that when it comes to these dietary practices, I love it when people go out and explore and try new things out, because that's when you really get to understand what works for you, but also what doesn't. And you can start to narrow things down to the point where you understand the things that work for you, and now you have a good set of principles and practices to go by. Also, another point that I would like to make with this is that although the study basically claims that there was no significant difference between the group who had been intermittent fasting and the group who had not been, is that there are a lot of people who have tried intermittent fasting, you might even be one of them, and have seen great results out of it. So what are you supposed to think when the study says, wait a second, this doesn't work? And on the other hand, there's a bunch of people out there who says, wait a second, but this has been working for me, so what's the conclusion? And even though based off of this study, maybe there's a chance that intermittent fasting doesn't have any sort of physiological effect on the body when it comes to weight loss, we can also assume that there are benefits outside of the physiological effects that can help us out, because a lot of the time weight loss doesn't just have to do with calories in and calories out. Even though that's a simple way to think about it and a great place to start, we also have to account for things like our mood, our stress, our sleep, a lot of other factors that will strongly impact and affect the calories in versus calories out model that we like to take a look at when it comes to weight loss. So one example here, the study tested a 16-8 method of intermittent fasting, which is basically you're allowed to eat for 8 hours throughout the day, and after those 8 hours you're going to take a 16-hour break until the next day, where you have another 8-hour window that you're able to consume food in. One thing that I personally found was extremely effective when you start closing your eating times into these 8-hour windows, or for some people 6-hour windows, is that all of a sudden you have this firm cutoff of when you're allowed to eat and when you're not allowed to eat. That alone makes it a little harder for you to squeeze in the same amount of food that you've been consuming, if you had a 10-hour or a 12-hour or even a 14-hour eating window. You just have a lot more time or a lot less time to eat, and therefore just naturally you're going to eat a little less food. And for some people that could be a lot less food in that situation. On top of that, I think one of the things that really impact the amount of calories that we consume is our decision making. And typically what I've seen to happen is towards the later hours of the day, after we get off work, later into the evening, after dinner, our decision making tends to not be the greatest. And this is just an assumption based off of what I've noticed with all the people, or many of the people that I've worked with, and in my own personal experience as well. You're probably not going to make great decisions at midnight like you are when you've woken up fresh from a good night's of sleep, maybe had a little breakfast, something to get into your body there. And because of that, you'll notice that your poor eating habits might tend to become a little worse towards the later hours of the day or into the evening. You might be snacking a lot after dinner, you might be tired after work, and when it comes to choosing what you're going to eat for dinner, you might not be making the best choice there. So what intermittent fasting might also do here is, all of a sudden, if you're starting to eat at, let's say, 9 a.m., and now your cutoff is going to be at 5 p.m. and you're not allowed to eat after, it all of a sudden blocks off any opportunity for you to make poor eating choices after your 5 p.m. threshold, because you're not allowed to eat within that time. Otherwise, where you might have been continuing to eat and making poor decisions like having dessert after dinner or whatever it is. So what I want to leave you with here is that although this study basically outlines the idea that intermittent fasting might not have been what we thought it was before, there still can be benefits to using this strategy when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to better nutritional or eating behaviors, just maybe not on that physiological level. So again, I hope this helped you out, gave you a little perspective. I know for a lot of people, intermittent fasting is something that you've probably tried. It's definitely blown up in the past couple of years, so I don't want to leave people with the notion that this doesn't work at all. However, we also have to look at it from a perspective of why this works, rather than only taking one lens to view the effect that it does have on our body. So again, thank you for watching this video. Hope it helped. This is Yajen with Gimme CrossFit. I'll see you on the next one.